Hello and welcome to Squatman Mode, where we follow the adventures of Sir Squatty in one of RuneScape's most pointless and stupid snowflake accounts ever. So first, just a little bit of context. RuneScape is a 20-year-old point-and-click adventure game, where to do virtually anything in this game, you need to use the left-click button. Whether that's talk, walk, fight, or eat food, the left click is key to this game. However, there's just one problem. I'm not going to be using a mouse. So what I'll be doing is suiting up in virtual reality and doing one air squat before I can use the left click option. That's basically the whole premise of the account, although I will go into the finer details as we make our way through Tutorial Island. Before we get started, I just need to make a few minor adjustments so he looks just like me, and yeah, that's looking pretty good. Question one is, why the fuck are you doing this? And it's a pretty fair question, but I've been exploring how you can incorporate fitness into video games, especially in VR, for about 4 years now. And I have a very humble blog and YouTube channel dedicated to just that. But something I always find myself coming back to is good old school RuneScape. And I haven't found any other MMO in VR that scratches the itch the same way. I also absolutely love watching snowflake accounts on YouTube and the amount of self-inflicted pain and suffering they go through just to achieve their goals. I kind of wanted to replicate that myself, but instead of sitting down and hurting myself emotionally, I plan on doing it physically. RuneScape is by no means a new game to me. I've been playing old school RuneScape on and off for about the last 8 years, where I like to do AFK activities and really inefficient methods, but then do other things on the side, whether that's gaming or actually fitness as well. So during lockdown, I would set myself up to fish sacred eels, and while I was fishing, I would do a set of push-ups, for example. How does it work? So essentially, I'm just using RuneLite on computer as normal, except I'll be using virtual desktop to connect to my Pico 4, which is a virtual reality headset, wirelessly, and then interacting with the game that way. I'll just be using one controller where the trigger button will be the left click, the B button will be right click, and then with the joystick I'll be able to control the camera. So the self-imposed rule is essentially I can use the camera and right click as much as I want. Before I'm able to use the left click, I need to do one air squat. Above the chat box, you'll be able to see a left and right click counter, and that's how I'll be tracking how many squats I've done over the day, week, or month. So how come Bronzeman mode? Why not just a normal account or using a full-on Ironman? So in terms of normal accounts, I already have a main, and I feel like I've kind of done that. I do really like the ability to use the Grand Exchange, and it just makes everything so much faster and so much easier. I also want the added challenge of, if there's a particular quest item or a clue scroll item, you have to learn which monsters drop it, and it just seems like a really fun way to play the game. But I don't want to do a full-on Iron Man mode for a couple of reasons. One, I do want to go into the wilderness, and that will be part of Season 2. And number two is just because of the time restrictions of this account. Like, I do work a full-time job, but even if I didn't, the amount I could actually spend in-game squatting is probably maxes out around an hour a day, maybe 2 hours if I'm really pushing it. So Bronzeman just seems like the sweet in between and what I'll be choosing to go ahead with. So in terms of the goals for this account, we're going to break it down into season, and season 1 kind of has 3 main objectives. So it's going to be called the Chicken Leg season, and number 1 objective is to get to 1 million gold in free to play. The next one is just to iron out any issues and kind of just configure the way that I want to play this account going forward. You can probably see me battling with the click to continue dialogue option. That's really, really hard to click in VR. It results in a lot of misclicks, which is even more squats, but sometimes the conversation with different NPCs and quest givers is just really long, which results in 20 rapid succession squats, which really just takes it out of me and is going to massively limit the amount that I can play each day. To combat that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a virtual keyboard. I'll show a picture of that, what that looks like. This will allow me to use the spacebar and numbers to navigate the different chat options, which will massively just speed it up and make my life a lot easier. The one thing that I will put on it is to use the keyboard, I have to remain in a deep squat. And then finally, I just want to get better at squats. I'm going to be interested to see how many I can do per day, how many in a row, over what sort of time period, and just to see if I get better at it. Like maybe I can work my way up to doing 1,000 squats a day. I have no idea what's realistic and what's not. So after season 1, we'll move our way onto season 2, which is the proper Squatman mode. I have a lot of ideas and plans for this, but I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll let you know when we're closer to the time. Once we reach season 2 goals, that's when I might start to incorporate other types of activity. Now, I'm not really sure what's possible. There are accessories like body tracking suits, hand tracking, eye tracking. It's set up like a boxing bag to be in front, and each time I hit something, that counts as an input, and then use my eyes to move around. But yeah, who knows? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. There we have Tutorial Island being completed in 226 squats. Also a very competitive time of 27 minutes and 47 seconds. Maybe I should make this a speedrunning account instead of a squatting account. But not gonna lie, that really took it out of me. I think after this, I just kind of look around Lumbridge and get my bearings and think about what I'm gonna do. So after a big bottle of water and a nice coffee, I got on with my adventure. So I haven't actually played a new account in, like I said, over 8 years. But I still decided to start off as all good fresh accounts do, with some very basic quests like Cook's Assistant, Sheep Shearer, Rune Mysteries, and finally Romeo and Juliet. During my questing spree, I decided to briefly shoot over to Alcarid and pick up some crafting supplies. Now the goal here was to get to 10 quest points as fast as possible so I can unlock the Grand Exchange. The Grand Exchange is going to be massive for my account, considering my first goal is to make 1 million gold. So I'm going to be exploring a few free-to-play moneymakers in the upcoming days. I finished day 1 with 500 squats and some sore legs. So it's actually day 3 now, and turns out that 500 air squats is just way too much for me. I woke up yesterday and I could not walk, let alone try to do more squats. And I guess that kind of makes sense because, if I've ever tried to actively train using air squats, normally I can only do about 30 or 40 in one go. And normally I'd only do about 3 or 4 sets. So changing my maximum from about 100 to 150 to 500 in one day is probably a bit more than I could chew. In today's session though, we're going to be focused on money making. One thing that I did forget about was the free trade restriction. So there's a bunch of different items that I actually can't sell in the Grand Exchange. And just like real life, you need to have money to make money. So looking through the restricted item list, not gonna lie, I was a little bit disappointed to see tin, copper, and iron ore. Mining these in Rock East Mine is just so nostalgic to me. What I did notice is that both normal logs and ashes were not on the list, so that's what I got started with. I decided to chop an entire inventory of trees and then run over to the east side of the Grand Exchange to light them on fire. One thing that I didn't really think about is just how click intensive and therefore squat intensive lighting all of these logs was going to be. And then also I had to pick up the ashes. So that was 3 squats per ash. I think looking back, it was probably just better just to stay chopping trees for now. And then also my plan here was actually to buy an inventory of food, but I completely forgot that I was a bronze med, and because I haven't unlocked any food, I can't just buy it from the Grand Exchange. So I will have to make a new plan. So from 138 squats to 250, I just decided to stay with the normal logs and chop myself a few inventories before selling that on the Grand Exchange, coming away with the fat cash stack of 7k. So after a quick water break, I decided to bank my sword and teleport myself to Lumbridge, where I would quickly stop at Bob's shop to buy 1 steel axe, which will be useful in the future for more woodcutting. Then we made our way into Lumbridge Swamp and started fishing some raw shrimp. Now this was actually one of my initial money-making ideas, but unfortunately raw shrimp, even though it is almost 100 gold, is on the restricted trade list. And actually when I started fishing, I noticed it took a really, really long time, so anyway, worked out that it wasn't. Once we had almost a full load of shrimp, we made our way over to the Felidor farm. Halfway along the way, I tried to take on an imp, but he got the better of me and teleported away, and I just kind of gave up after that. I then cooked this entire inventory, get myself a few cooking levels, before making our way over to Betty's Magic Emporium, where we pick up our first best in slot item, the blue wizard hat. Very, very nice. Now, the reason we came to Port Saurima is to pick up some red berries and then also make our way over to Remington to get some onions. And you can probably guess that I am getting ready for goblin diplomacy. After that, the last ingredients that I need is the woad leaves from Felidor Park. I could not remember where the guy was that sold this, so I was just squatting in Felidor Park for no reason. After that, we did make our way back to Draenor Village to pick up our 3 dyes, mix the yellow and the red together, so we've got the orange dye already in the inventory, and then all the way back to Goblin Village. I'm not gonna lie, here my legs were really starting to burn and scream at me, and by far the hardest part of this was just sitting in that deep squat. At this point I did want to continue, but my legs were telling me otherwise. All in all, we ended up doing 400 squats in just over an hour's gameplay, but by far the biggest achievement here is getting level 5 crafting and that gold bar unlocked. which is going to be very, very big in the future. And with the final session upon us, our goal was really just to get that starting cash stack as high as possible. So I made my way over to Barbarian Village to do the Stronghold of Security for 10,000 GP. Once again, the deep squats and the dialogue options proving the most difficult part of this challenge. Making it back to the Grand Exchange in well under 100 squats, I did what was probably the noobiest thing I've ever done in my life, which was pick up someone else's ashes. I did that for half of an inventory and then put the steel axe to work and started chopping my normal trees. Halfway through my woodcutting adventure, some steel warrior logged in and tried to crash me, but we did get the better of him. After almost 300 squats, we sold all of our loot on the GE, came away with just over 25k and invested all of this into gold bars. So we are ending this episode with 276 gold bars, 13 quest points, and a total level of 75. While the RuneScape games aren't exactly huge, one thing that we did end up doing was over 1250 squats in 4 days. I am definitely in need of a rest day, and I hope to see you in the next episode very soon.